Hi, everybody. My name's Bruce. Yeah. I struggle with shame-based addictions, and a bunch of newcomers. You guys don't have to give a lot of money right now. Just later, save it for later. We just want you to enjoy the night and just kind of take in being here, and we sure welcome you. You're newcomers. You're kind of coming into the last teaching of the whole season here. And it's quite a season because it goes through 12 years. 12 months of, I've been here 12 years. But it goes through 12 months. And this is the last couple of weeks here, so welcome. One good thing is that you'll be able to start from step one the next time we have a meeting. As you know, next week's going to be a time when we just celebrate the end of the year, and you're sure welcome to come and enjoy us and learn about us some more. And then start with step one. So that's pretty cool that you're here. But tonight I'm going to talk about step one all over again. Because after you take the 12 steps, what you got to think about is some reasons why you might get stuck after you've taken the steps. And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about tonight. And of all of us that's been here time and time again, we know how easy it is to get distracted by the things of what's in front of us. Things that you don't expect, things that you expect, but you get kind of bored, so you want to do it your way anyway. Just a whole bunch of different ways to get distracted in your recovery. So when we go through these questions, please put your own thoughts in them. These are mine, and hopefully it'll generate some talk in the groups. And if something comes up that I didn't talk about, bring them up in a group and enjoy it and just see what the leader does with it. The first one is you haven't completely worked the previous step. It's taken a year to go through all the steps here on Thursday night. We've looked at 52 lessons and learned with each other through our experience, strength, and hope in our small group meetings. We've also had some very rich teachings and personal testimonies that enrich and clarify each step. This all happens here on Thursday nights, and then when we thought we were ready, we decided to go through the 12 steps and go through the 12-step study group and complete the steps. We find a sponsor, someone we trust, to guide us through the steps, and we take the steps. We find as we go through the steps that the barriers between God and us slowly start to disappear, and we develop a personal relationship or friendship with God. We realize we're not perfect, but God loves us anyway. And just realizing that He accepts us just the way we are, it's humbling to me, and I think everybody here. But we're only as strong as our weakest link. So doing each step in order is a must. We need to learn and grow at our own pace. Don't let anybody in this program rush you along. This is a selfish program, it really is. You come here and you get what you need, you put it in your pocket, and you just continue on your way. These things that you gather, things that kind of come into your mind and say, well, that's good, especially when you're first starting, I would keep them. I keep them like they're little treasures. It's some tools that you need, kitchen tools or tools out in the garage. When you need them, they're there, and then you can do that job. Number 2. I'm going to put number 2 and 3 together as kind of the same thought here. 2 is you have not completely surrendered your life and your will to the Lord. The 3 is you have not accepted Jesus' work on the cross for your forgiveness. 2 and 3 have all to do with a genuine saving faith as a personal attachment to Christ. Best thought of as a combination of 2 ideas: reliance on Christ and commitment to Him. Saving faith involves personally depending on the finished work of Jesus' sacrifice as the only basis for forgiveness of sin and entrance into heaven. But saving faith is also a personal commitment of one's life to following Christ in obedience to His commands. In our modern time, faith has been weakened in meaning so that people use it to mean self-confidence. But in the Bible, true faith is confidence in God or Christ and not in oneself. So I often think this type of faith takes our 12 steps and condenses it into one step. It's kind of like a first one-step program. If you have that, you have just about everything else whipped. A very good way to keep God with you at all times is to remember that, whether you like it or not, God is present. You can be an observer of what God is doing. For instance, when you walk into a room, you can do your best to see what God is doing and get involved with what God's doing. It may seem like a lot of work, but it sure beats the old thinking patterns we had in our addiction. The one where our addiction held most of our attention throughout the day. And just practice the presence of God in the things that you do. 4, you have not forgiven others who have harmed you. I think I need a strong faith in God to be free of unforgiveness. First, I need to know that when I ask God for forgiveness, that He has the power to take that sin away, and that sin is never held against me. Then, when I forgive someone, I can extend the same grace God gave me. If I hold on to the resentment in any way, it stops my growth cold. It stops it for me because it's impossible to have a resentment and feel love at the same time. Resentment is anger. And have you ever been angry and then somebody tried to hug you? You know, it's hard. And God is always trying to be there with you and be close. And if you have a resentment, in a lot of areas you might not let God very close to you because of that resentment. So it's very important to really forgive, just like God really forgives us. Okay, number 5. You're afraid of the risk of making necessary changes. Changes. Yeah. We love changes, right? Well, you've heard of the common phrase around the tables. If you haven't heard it, here it is again. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Changing the way we look at life is or can be a very humbling experience. For me, I need to look at where the bad behavior or resentment started and carefully dig out all the roots until it dies. An example of that in my life would be when I was a a kid, having a magazine with risky pictures in it and having that in sight, and it was very hard to find. And as I grew older, it started to be more common. I could see this coming in the stores. It'd be right at eye level a lot of times. And then television and the media just selling sex and fantasies, and it's got worse and worse, more and more kind of accepted by our society, where it wasn't just a mere, say, 50 years ago. So what if you had a root that started when you were a child, and Satan is kind of has this kind of root starting in you, and he just caused one lie on top of another one. This is okay? Well, then I guess this is okay. And it starts up that way. So when I say about taking out roots, I say, well, where did it start? And then what kind of damage did it do in the way it caused me to think over the years? And it kind of puts sight to why you're thinking the way you do. It's quite a good troubleshooting experience. When I look for these bad behaviors or resentments, I need to look at them as if God was looking over my shoulder. Only then can I get a true perspective. There are some things that I don't want to look at, and they're saying, And here's another saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. If there is something in you that you don't want anybody to know about, well, that's going to keep you locked up right there. Kind of put you, for me, it would put a barrier between me and the person that's trying to get close to me. And it does the same thing with God, who is trying to get close to me. And then, the simple matter of it is God knows the secret. So the only thing that's keeping you from being close to Him is just realizing that you're keeping that secret from Him. So making that necessary change helps you move closer to the Lord. And it gives you the courage and the reason for doing that. The benefits of moving closer to the Lord and the things that are in the way will always be worth the risk that you're taking personally. Will always be worth the risk. Number 6, you are not willing to own your responsibility. Here's a question for you. Are you responsible for what you know? Many of us have listened to sermons in church for years and are smart. But do we do what these sermons say? Do we actually put it in practice? Have we completed the 4-step inventory and maybe we found that we were at fault in some ways? Did we make proper amends? Or just put the amends on ignore because we thought it might cause us pain or embarrassment? I think it was Pastor Bonner who said that if you're at fault, say 5% in an argument or a disagreement, you need to make amends for that 5%. Integrity is required before God. I got to go to the baseball game last Monday, and I saw a team that performed very well. And everybody did their job. I was thinking about the game and how important it was for everybody to know what their position was, and they practiced that position. But in the game of baseball, you have more than one thing you got to do. You got to be able to catch the ball. You got to play your position, know what your area is, And there's a lot of things to learn about that position so you don't interfere with someone else. Good boundaries. You also have to learn how to hit. And most of all, you need to know how to think about how the game's progressing, because if you don't, you can actually be a detriment to the team. So as we were playing the game, it's kind of the game of life. We do different things in our life, and we need to be good at what we do and not be dismayed when we dismayed or unhappy with ourselves if it's hard at first to do these things we want to do. We need to practice some and get good at it, because it's a habit we need to change, and we need to practice doing. So I really like that game of baseball, because everybody that plays together wins. But if you get distracted during the game of baseball and you don't know where to throw the ball, or you just kind of miss one detail in the game, that other team may win. And it's kind of like you got to watch out, just like you got to watch out what Satan's doing in his game. You got to be aware of what's good and what's not, and get your head in the game. So own your own responsibility. It's kind of like playing baseball and being a good player. Oh, you haven't, number 7, talk about you haven't developed an effective support team. If I go to a counselor, the first thing I would like to know about that counselor is if that counselor has a counselor. I require my pastor to have someone he's accountable to. I don't think there's anyone strong enough in this world to do life by themselves and come out squeaky clean. There's just too much going on in this world of ours. For me, I know that it's my best thinking that got me in this room. So I need another person to hold me accountable. I need others to teach me, and I need to serve others. I also know I need to make myself available for input from others. The more people around me that tell me, watch out in a certain area in my life, and say, okay, you need a little bit of changing in this way, the more likely I'll be able to decide to change my behavior. Each one of us does have a certain amount of burden we carry. It's kind of like a knapsack, I call it. And we have some stuff in the knapsack, and we walk around with it during the day, and it's our load, and we carry it fine. But sometimes things happen in our lives, and it feels like somebody put a big rock in that knapsack, and it becomes heavier. And then to top it off, here comes another rock and another one. And pretty soon we're just kind of buckling underneath the load. It's very important that we understand when that load becomes too heavy for us, we need to reach out and talk to someone that will help us with that load. We have sponsors, we have accountability partners, we have people in our own churches, small groups, we have care groups in our churches. Like I said before, it's a very selfish program. Need to ask for help when we need it, and know when that is, and don't be afraid to. So anything that distracts us from the Lord, we need to take care of. Just the bottom line. On the back of this paper, we have this little lines and arrows and stuff. I thought of pictures because I knew Richard was going to be here. So, if you notice these arrows that go around in the circle, you start up at the top. You encounter a stressful situation or a strong or painful emotion. Then you have a need to avoid pain. So you go to alcohol, food, people, drugs, work, religion, whatever works for you. There's as many addictions out there as there's different feelings that you've been hurt by. There's different drugs for different kinds of emotions. There's whatever way that you've been hurt in your life, there's probably a drug or something out there that will help you avoid that, to numb out from your pain. So that's where you go to the anesthetic, and the pain is hidden. The thing is when you go into hiding, you have a poor result from that, and that poor result causes pain and guilt and shame. And then that is kind of adds on to that encounter of stressful situations or strong, painful emotions. So around and round and round we go. It's kind of like a tornado. In the center, the eye of the tornado. Let's get in line. If you have the spirit, I see it's bigger than the soul and the body. The spirit is what God is. There's a counselor that lives inside us that tells you, this is right and this is wrong. Your prayer life with God will, and talking to Him like He's here, as if He's not here. He is here. He's omnipresent. The soul is under the Spirit, and that's the same. All the soul is all your emotions. Your emotions are just what they are. They're emotions, and they don't have brains, but you got to think for them. And so that's under there. And then your body, your aches and pains, what your body does, and what you decide to do with it, all needs to be under the cover of the Spirit. Now, if the soul and the body ever move out into that tornado, and that's what it feels like, you just kind of spin around. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys tonight. And have a good evening.